Now let's go into what was the scenario in terms of knowledge. Right? That was the political aspect, the two rulers. But what was it like in terms of ilm and the ulamā in that time period? So, what we find is that in this time period in Khurasan, basically there was numerous things that were happening. In general, there was a big revival and resurgence of Islamic sciences because there were certain individuals such as someone called Nidhamul Mulk, and they began to establish madaris in different parts in the Muslim world, in Balkh, in Herat, which is in Afghanistan, Nisabur, Marw, Baghdad, Mosul, Asbahan, Tabaristan, right? In all these places there were schools and there were many, many hundreds of scholars. So it was a rich period of basically scholarship. And people would fund these schools and people would learn fiqh. And Al-Qadiru Billah himself, تفقه وصنف حتى عده ابن الصلاح من الفقهاء الشافعية. Even Al-Qadiru Billah, the ruler, he was even counted as amongst the jurists of the Shafi'is. This was such a period where ilm was widespread and taught that even the rulers were considered to be from the fuqaha, from the jurists. And likewise Sultan Mahmud bin Sabuktakin, his gathering would be all of the ulamā. They would come to him and he himself was inclined to the ilm al-hadith. So what does this show? This shows that this time period of Shaykh al-Islām Abū Ismā'īl al-Harawī is, very strong knowledge-based situation. قال Al-Maqrizi, the historian, he says, the historian from Egypt in the 8th century Hijrah, he says, وَالْمَدَارِسِ مِمَّا حَدَثَ فِي الْإِسْلَامِ, meaning these schools were not known before that. And they were not known in the time of the Sahaba or the Tabi'een. They happened after the 4th century, and the people of Nisabur were the first ones to build these madaris. And likewise, Al-Amir Nasr bin Sabuktakin. And so he's speaking about how these madaris came to be, and they came to Khurasan, and this was a flowering of the Islamic sciences. And even Al-Maqdisi, قال المقدسي عن أهل ذلك الإقليم في أحسن التقاسيم وأهل خراسان أشد الناس تفقها وبالحق تمسكا. So not only from the political point of view, from the knowledge-based point of view, Khurasan was known to be a place of fiqh and holding fast to the sunnah. ولهذا وقال أيضا هو أكثر الأقاليم علما وفقها. It was the region most known for ilm and fiqh. And so we see that in history in the Islamic nation, Allah Azza wa Jal puts scholars and leaders in different places. One time it's here, one time it's there, one time it's there, according to the rules in His creation, that when you are upright, Allah will give you, you will remain, and when you deviate, Allah will take it away from you. Right? This is how it happens in these are the days. So ولهذا كانت السنة ظاهرة فيها وساعد على ظهورها في تلك الأسقاء بأن السلطان يحميها كما تقدم معنا في الحالة السياسية والتي اجتمعت إليها الحالة العلمية. So meaning that the reason why this happened is that we have a strong political situation, strong rulers, but also in terms of ilm as well. And then he goes, فأخرجتا كيحيى بن عمار. So in this time, there was another great Imam from that time period known as who? Yaḥyā bin Ammār. And Yaḥyā bin Ammār is a Shaykh of Abū Ismā'īl al-Harawī. So in this time period, there is Yaḥyā bin Ammār. Who is Yaḥyā bin Ammār? Does anybody know? قال الذهبي متحرقا على المبتدئ والجهمية. Yaḥyā bin Ammār, that he was fiery, like meaning brimstones and fire against the Mubtadi'ah and the Jahmiyyah, against the innovators in the Jahmiyyah. Do you know who Yaḥyā bin Ammār is? He's the one who said, المعتزلة مخانيث الجهمية والأشعرية مخانيث المعتزلة. Right? He said, the Mu'tazilis, they are the effeminates of the Jahmiyyah. They are the women of the Jahmiyyah. Meaning that they are not man enough to deny all the attributes like the Jahmiyyah. The Jahmiyyah have come out openly saying Allah has no attributes, what He can't be described with any attribute. They denied everything because they were consistent. They were consistent, right? They applied the principles of their philosophy consistently, right? Our ilm al-kalam and our proof of huduth al-ajsam demands that we deny all attributes for Allah. So they are men. At least they are men. They stick to their principle. The Mu'tazila, like, effeminate, the word used is a sissy. There's a word, look in the dictionary, it's called sissy. Right? They're not willing to go all the way and say, yes, they're playing games. We affirm the names, but we deny the attributes. But when we say Allah has mercy, when we say Allah is ar-Rahim, we don't mean He has rahmah. So Allah is al-Alim bila ilm, al-Qadir bila qudra, as-Sami bila sam. You're just playing games. You're just playing games. Right? So you Mu'tazila are the makhanith of the Jahmiyyah. You're just the effeminate of the Jahmiyyah. And the Ash'aris, they are the makhanith of the Mu'tazila. You really are upon the way of the Mu'tazila, but you're just too weak and you're just too cowardly to come out and say what the Mu'tazila is saying. Right? You make a display of affirming the 7 attributes, as-sam' wal-basar. But even if, according to your creed, you can't really affirm these attributes either. As-sam'. Is Allah hearing us right now, what we are saying? So if Allah is hearing what we are saying, and we are created, that means Allah didn't hear what we are saying before we were created. So this means in your creed, this is from the hawadith, in Allah's essence. So therefore, there are hawadith in Allah's essence. This is necessitated if you affirm sam' for Allah, and basar for Allah, and ilm for Allah, and irada for Allah. So really, you don't affirm any of these attributes. You're just playing games. Why don't you just be real men and say like the Mu'tazila, we deny all the attributes? Why are you being effeminate sissies? Right? So this is the same man, Yaḥyā bin Ammār, who said this statement and who was mutaharriqan ala al-mubtadi'a wal-jahmiyya. وكان الإمام يحيى بن عمار كما قال الذهبي أيضا له القبول التام بتلك الديار لفصاحته وحسن موعظته وبراعته في التفسير والسنة. So this Yaḥyā bin Ammār was like Shaykh and Imam, well known, whose speech was accepted and taken by all the people in those regions in Khurasan because of his eloquence, because of his good admonition, because of his skillfulness in making tafsīr and in the Sunnah. وكان هذا الشيخ من أبرز شيوخ شيخ الإسلام الذين تأثر بهم في الشدة على أهل الكلام. So this Yaḥyā bin Ammār was a sheikh of Shaykh al-Islam Abū Ismā'īl al-Harawī al-Ansari. And so he strongly influenced him in the way he was dealing with the people of bid'ah. And he says that قال الذهبي so he says ورغم أن العلم قد بلغ ذروته في تلك الأيام. So obviously knowledge was widespread, and even though knowledge was widespread, there were still heads of innovation were present in that time still. Right? So it was a time of learning, time of strong rulers, time of strong outspoken people of the Sunnah like Yaḥyā bin Ammār and Abū Ismā'īl al-Harawī, but still there were heads of bid'ah still present. So here we have a quote from Adh-Dhahabī رحمه الله. قال الذهبي كان في هذا العصر رأس الأشعرية. Who was the heads of the Ash'aris in that time? In the 4th century, Khurasan. Abū Ishaq al-Isfarayini. There's a man called Abū Ishaq al-Isfarayini. وَرَأْسُ الْمُعْتَزِلَةِ الْقَاضِي عَبْدُ الْجَبَّارِ. This is from the heads of innovation, al-Qadi Abdul Jabbar. He was present in that time as well. وَرَأْسُ الرَّافِدَةِ الشَّيْخُ الْمُفِيد. You probably heard this name. the Rafidis quoting like from their scholars, Shaykh al-Mufid said, Shaykh al-Mufid. This man was present, the heads of the Rafida was present in that time. His books are source works for the Rafida. وَرَأْسُ الْكَرَّامِيَّةِ Muhammad ibn al-Haytham, one of the head of the Karramis. وَرَأْسُ الْقُرَّاء Abul Hasan al-Hamami. وَرَأْسُ الْمُحَدِّثِينَ الْحَافِظ Abdul Ghani bin Sa'id. وَرَأْسُ الصُّوفِيَّة Abu Abdurrahman al-Sullami. وَرَأْسُ الشُّعَرَاء Abu Umar bin Darraj. وَرَأْسُ الْمُجَوِّدِينَ Ibn al-Bawwab. وَرَأْسُ الْمُلُوكِ السُّلْطَان. Obviously, what he's doing is he's pointing out who were the heads in every field. Who's a head in the Rafida? Who's a head among the Sufiyya? Who's a head in this? And then he also mentions the heads of the rulers. The heads of the rulers was Mahmud, as-Sultan Mahmud bin Sabukhtaqin. Like he happened to be the best of the rulers in the field of politics and leadership and so on and so forth. And likewise, Ibn al-Iyaad, he says, وَيُضَمْ إِلَى هَذَا رَأْسُ الزَّنَادِقَةِ al-Hakim bi-amrillah. Right? So we add to all of these mentioned in that time, there was also the head of the heretics, al-Hakim bi-amrillah. وَرَأْسُ اللُّغْوِيِّينَ al-Jawhari. Al-Jawhari, the linguist, was present in that time. وَرَأْسُ النُّحَاتِ Ibn Jinni. Ibn Jinni was like one of the famous grammarians, wrote many books, has i'tizal with him. He's present in that time as well. And likewise, all the scholars of the language, وَرَأْسُ الْبُلَغَاء الْبَدِيء وَرَأْسُ الْخُطَبَاء Ibn Nubata وَرَأْسُ الْمُفَسِّرِينَ Abu al-Qasim bin Habib al-Nisaburi وَرَأْسُ الْخُلَفَاء الْقَادِرُ بِاللَّهِ. Right? So the point being, so we can round off this discussion now, inshallah. We now have some history and background as to the political situation in that time and also the knowledge-based situation in that time. What do we see? We see strong, powerful rulers upon the Sunnah, enforcing Tawheed, enforcing the Creed, making people read the books that the ruler himself authored in the Jum'ah for 4 decades, 40 years, subduing Ahlul Bid'ah, preventing them from speaking, forcing their repentance, making them sign agreements that they will never speak. Right? This is the situation. And then at the same time, you have the flourishing of Islamic sciences, scholarship, strong individual scholars defending the Sunnah, Yaḥyā bin Ammār, Shaykh Abū Ismā'īl, al-Harawi. So this is generally the time period that we're dealing with. And out of that comes the authorship, one of the authorships of Shaykh al-Islam Abū Ismā'īl al-Harawi, which is the precursor, which is what Ibn al-Qayyim is commenting upon. So this now brings me, if you allow me and bear with me, inshallah, before we reach Salatul Isha. And now we come to who is author, Sahib, Manazil Al-Sa'ireen. Right? This is now Abū Ismā'īl al-Harawi. Now we know the politics situation. Now we know the general era in terms of knowledge. We can see how he was raised, how he was brought up in that time period. You would expect that this is going to be someone firm upon the Sunnah. And it also shows the good effect of a good nurturing. If your nurturing is upon Tawheed and the Sunnah and firmness upon the Sunnah, alhamdulillah, there is good for you. And a good environment and a climate is something good and positive. Anyhow, so let's round up for today, inshallah ta'ala. Who is Man huwa Sahib Manazil Al-Sa'ireen? Who is the author of Manazil Al-Sa'ireen? Which is what Ibn al-Qayyim is commenting upon to write Madarij al-Sālikīn. Huwa al-Imām, al-Muhaddith, al-Mufassir, al-Wā'iz, al-Faqih, Shaykh al-Islam. He was known as Shaykh al-Islam in that time. He is the Imam, the Muhaddith, because he was he would narrate hadith with the isnad. Al-Mufassir, he used to make tafsīr of the Qur'ān through all of his jalasat in his lessons. Al-Wa'iz, the admonisher. Al-Faqih, the jurist. Shaykh al-Islam. And his full name, Abū Ismā'īl Abdullah. So his name was Abdullah. Abdullah bin Muhammad bin Ali bin Muhammad bin Ahmed bin Ali bin Ja'far bin Mansur bin Mat al-Ansari al-Harawi min walad as-sahabi al-jalil مضيف رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم في دار هجرته أبو أيوب زيد بن خالد al-Ansari. This is a lineage, right? He's Abū Ismā'īl, Abdullah the son of Muhammad, and so it goes all the way through lineage until you come to one of the offspring of the companion Abu Ayyub al-Ansari. So he's from that lineage. And he was born in 396 Hijrah, which is 1005 in the Christian era. في شعبان بقندهار. He was born in Kandahar today in Afghanistan. And Ibn Rajab mentions this, and Ismail al-Ghafir bin Ismail al-Farisi in the Tarikh of Nisabur, and Ibn al-Jawzi mentions this as well, that he was born in that time period. So this was when he was born, 396, and he heard hadith in Herat. Herat is again in Afghanistan. Who from? From Yaḥyā bin Ammār as-Sijzi, who is the Shaykh that he heard hadith from. And he took وَأَخَذَ عَنْهُ عِلْمُ التَّفْسīr. So he took tafsīr from Yaḥyā bin Ammār. وَسَمِعَ جَامِعَ أبي عيسى الترمذي. So he heard the Sunan of Tirmidhi from him, and he heard it from numerous scholars, and he mentioned some of the scholars. He took hadith from other scholars, and so basically they go through some of the different sciences he took from different scholars. Then he also wrote numerous books. Kitabu Dhammil Kalam, that we mentioned already. Another book called al-Fāruq. Another book called Manāqib al-Imām Ahmad, the virtues of Imam Ahmad. He wrote a book in Persian on tafsīr, kitabun fi tafsīr, fi tafsīr al-Qur'ān bil-Fārisiyya wa majālis al-tadhkīr bil-Fārisiyya. So, as you can see, this is ilm. He's taking knowledge from different scholars, taking different sciences, tafsir, language, Qur'an, from different scholars, because that was a time of learning and the flowering of knowledge. Now what happened is that he wrote the book Manazil Al-Sa'ireen, and this is the most famous of his books, Manazil Al-Sa'ireen, of which this is a commentary. And in this book, it's a book that deals with tasawwuf, but tasawwuf upon the Qur'an and the Sunnah. And he divided this book into 10 sections: al-bidayat, wal-abwab, wal-mu'amalat, wal-akhlaq, wal-usul, wal-awdiyah, wal-ahwal, wal-wilayat, wal-haqa'iq, wal-nihayat. Meaning, he's divided it into 10 areas, and then he's spoken about, like worship and suluk and, all these things into these 10 different areas. However, now this is the important point. Some of the speech of Abū Ismā'īl al-Harawī became confusing to some people, and they began to interpret them philosophically. Right? Some of the Sufis, some of the, so they began to use his book as if he was in agreement with them and their creed of ittihad and their creed of hulul. But he was free from that. Right? But he used some deep language and some things, concepts that they didn't really understand, but they tried to use it to make it look as if Abū Ismā'īl, Shaykh al-Islām, is actually upon what they are upon. And obviously, this is not the case, and this is one of the reasons why Ibn al-Qayyim, rahimahullah, he wrote this book in order to clarify these issues and to exonerate Shaykh al-Islām, Abū Ismā'īl, from the sayings of the Sufis. And in the process, he did what he did. Right? Remember at the beginning of the book, we said, how did Ibn al-Qayyim address the issue from Abū Ismā'īl al-Harawi's book, but anchor it back into the creed of the Salaf? That's what Ibn al-Qayyim did. And that's why he wrote this book. And in a way, the point I want you to understand here is, here you have Ibn al-Qayyim, Shaykh al-Islām in himself, over there on the other side in, Syria, Damascus, over that area. And then there's a Shaykh al-Islam in the East from 3 centuries earlier, whom the Sufis are ascribing to, and they're trying to misinterpret his words and make it look as if he's one of them, just like they do with Shaykh Abdul Qadir al-Jilani. They do the same with him. Right? So Ibn al-Qayyim is doing a service to that Shaykh al-Islam by writing a commentary, an explanation to refute their lies and to establish the true creed and to bring everything that Shaykh al-Islam is speaking of about the states of the heart and traversing to Allah and all the intricacies of like tawbah and fear and mahabba, and he's bringing it back and give it an explanation upon the Qur'an, Sunnah and the way of the Salaf. And that's a tremendous service being done by Ibn al-Qayyim to another great scholar who preceded him in Islam, Tawheed, Sunnah, subduing Ahlul Bid'ah, to defend his honor. And so for that reason, there were like Imam al-Dhahabī, they mention certain things. Like for example, Ibn Sam'ani says about Shaykh Abū Ismā'īl al-Harawī that he says, سمعت أبا إسماعيل عبد الله بن محمد الأنصاري يقول مذهب أحمد مذهب. So he was strong on the madhab of Imam Ahmad. He would say the madhab of Ahmad is the most praiseworthy madhab. So he was a strong supporter of the madhab of Imam Ahmad, but he was not biased towards it, because he would quote from al-Shāfi'ī and he would quote from Imam Ahmad, right? He was strong upon it because Imam Ahmad was a person of the Sunnah. Now, you've probably heard the famous statement, you've probably heard this statement, قال ابن طاهر المقدسي الحافظ, Ibn Tahir al-Maqdisi al-Hafiz said, سمعت الإمام أبا إسماعيل عبد الله بن محمد الأنصاري بحرات يقول, I heard this Abū Ismā'īl, Shaykh al-Islam, when he was in Herat, and he said, عرضت علي السيف 5 مرات. The sword was put to my neck 5 times. لا يقال لي ارجع عن مذهبك لكن يقال لي اسكت عمن خالفك فأقول لا أسكت. This is a famous statement narrated from Shaykh al-Islam. He said that 5 times the sword was put to my neck, meaning by the people of bid'ah and dalalah. After the 2 rulers, Al-Qadir Billah and Mahmud bin Sabuktakin, passed away, then trials came to his life from the Mubtadi'ah, because now they became bold, because those rulers weren't present anymore. So they made trials for him. So he was taken, sometimes he was banished, sometimes he was threatened. So he said that the sword was put to my neck 5 times. Each time they didn't say, abandon your creed, leave what you're upon. They didn't say that to him. They weren't bothered about that. They said, be quiet about those who oppose you. Don't speak about those who oppose you. And he said, La askut, I am not remaining silent. And so this is the way of the Mubtadi'ah. They don't mind that we are upon the Salafi creed, that we believe in Allah's names and attributes, that we believe in al-Qadr and Iman and all the intricacies and detail. They're not bothered about that. They just don't want you speaking about their bid'ah. That's what hurts them the most. And so that's why here you see that these great scholars were put to trial in this. Like with Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah, same thing. Just be quiet, don't speak against, philosophy and kalam and tasawwuf and this and that and whatever. They don't want him to speak. So either imprisoned him, or they complained to the rulers, or they said this and they did this and they did that. This is the way of the people, people who speak against, who are shadid against bid'ah. Okay, so what happened is that he got put to trial numerous times. They expelled him from the city, and he was put in prison, and he was restricted. And these things would happen, at the age of 42, and then the age of 66, and so on and so forth. However, there came a time when there was a ruler, وانتهت المحنة, so he's put through numerous trials, right? The sword was put to his neck. So then what happened? وانتهت المحنة في شهور سنة 62, right? So in 462, when he was aged 66. So in other words, for about 40 years of his life after the death of Al-Qadir Billah, Al-Mahmud ibn Sabuqtaqain, he was put to trial in his life by the people of Bid'ah, right? Then, after 40 years in the year min jihatil Imam al-Qa'imu bi amrillah. So there's a ruler called al-Qa'imu bi amrillah who gave him khil'ah sharifa, meaning he was given the robe of honor. One of the rulers, the Khalifas, gave him the robe of honor, meaning that he was honored by this ruler for his ilm, for his station, for his standing, for his teaching. So after all that hardship, he was eventually honored. So he was given this khil'ah. And likewise in the year 474, he was given another robe of honor from the al-Imam al-Muqtadi. And he was officially given the title, al-Khitab wal-Laqab bi Shaykh al-Islam, Shaykh al-Shuyukh, Zayn al-Ulamā, Abū Ismā'īl, Abdullah bin Muhammad al-Ansari. وَخِلْأَةٌ أُخْرَى لِابْنِهِ Abdul-Hadi. So meaning, right, towards the end of his life, like literally now he's 70-something, and he's given the honor and titles by the then ruler of that time, as officially he is known as the Shaykh of Islam, the Shaykh of the Shuyukh, the adornment of the ulamā, Abū Ismā'īl, Abdullah bin Muhammad al-Ansari. And just quickly to finish off, because just another page or so of biographical information. كان الشيخ آية في الحفظ. He was a sign in terms of memorization. حفظ الحديث والتفسير. He memorized the hadith and the tafsir. He memorized the lugha wal adab, the language and literature. And he used to give tafsir of the Qur'an in his gatherings of admonition. Now, in the Tarikh books, it is mentioned that when he returned from the first trial in his life, which would be when he's in his 20s and 30s, he began to make a tafsir of the Qur'an. And this would be like in the 436 Hijrah. He began to make a tafsir in his gatherings, and what he would do is explain each ayah, and he continued for many years up until he reached إِنَّ الَّذِينَ سَبَقَتْ لَهُم مِّنَّ الْحُزْنَى. This is in Surah Al-Anbiya. This ayah, it took him بَنَى عَلَيْهَا 360 مجلس. And this one verse, there were 360 sittings based upon this one verse. And then he said, فَلَمَّا بَلَغَ قَوْلَهُ تَعَالَى يَكَادُ صَنَى بَرْقِهِ يَذْهَبُ بِالْأَبْصَارِ. So the ayah in Surah An-Nur, that it is almost as if the flash of the lightning snatches away their eyesight. Kuffa basra, like his eyesight was basically taken. And this was in the year 473. And then when he reached the ayah, لما بلغ إلى قوله عز وجل فلا تعلم نفس ما أخفي لهم من قرة أعين. This is in Surah Sajda. Surah Sajda. He said that in this ayah, or every name of Allah, there is there is some knowledge. And he began to explain each of the names of Allah until he reached Al-Mumit. And then he was expelled again from his city because of the fitna. He was thrown out again. Then he came back again in the year 480, 1 year before his death. And then what he began to do is he began to speed up and hasten in the tafsir and explain a lot more in one majlis. And he wanted to complete the whole of the Qur'an. He got maybe two-thirds of the way through. But, he was, Allah decreed for him to pass away. So he reached the ayah, قُلْ هُوَ نَبَأٌ عَظِيمٌ أَنْتُمْ عَنْهُ مُعْرِضُونَ. So he got through maybe two-thirds, of the Qur'an, and then qadar Allah, he passed away. Right? So this is the life of Abū Ismā'īl al-Harawī, Shaykh al-Islam. He is the author of Manazil Al-Sa'ireen, and which Ibn al-Qayyim has written this book, which is what we are going to look at. And so we will look at the start of this book, the introduction, inshallah, in the next lesson, whenever Allah allows that to take place. So this was really just to give you the historic background. So you understand what's the background to this book. and who is the author of the original work, and what happened to him, and who is he, and what time was he living in. Right? So when we have that appreciation, we better appreciate the book when we know these background circumstances of the book, and we appreciate it more, and we place more value in this book, and we benefit from it more as well. So inshallah, we'll conclude our opening lesson there for today. I apologize for the length. May Allah reward you for your patience. And so we'll conclude there and make way for Salatul Isha. Walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wa sallallahu ala nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in.